Alright, so this is my live reaction to the Avengers Doomsday trailer. Let's get it, man. Okay, after I'm done reacting to it, I'm gonna watch a video about it breaking down the trailer, and see what I missed. Let's get it, man. Oh shit!
Something's coming. Something's coming. Something we may not be able to deter before this day is done.
Yo,
We shall be faced with an unthinkable decision.
I've fought with many warriors in my time. They were far stronger than all of us put together, and they died. They died facing enemies and threats that scared me far less than this one.
hold on.
Less
What the
than this one.
going on?
Everything that they sacrifice will be for nothing if we do not stand together.
Bro, what the?
Put aside your petty squabbles and presume nothing except this. If you return, you will return as brothers and sisters.
Yo.
Mark my words. We're going to need a miracle.
Yo.
Hey, pal.
What?
It's not possible.
Captain America? What? What? Ow. Yo. 4 months. Nah, bro. That shit was crazy as fuck, bro. Bro, what, King? Shit's insane. Alright, so now this is their breakdown to the trailer I just watched. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it. It'll be long too, but I don't know if I'm
Wait a minute, I've seen that rune before. I'm Eric Boss of the New Rockstars channel, and this is a breakdown of the Avengers Doomsday trailer. From Dr. Doom actor Robert Downey Jr.'s Latvian accent to Avengers teaming up with X-Men and fighting them, forming our wildest crossover dreams come true. There's so much to break down here. This footage has been living rent-free in my brain since I saw a version of it at a preview event in April, but now that I can go through it frame by frame, I can't believe how many more details I was able to spot. There's even this new shot of Loki in his TVA ID badge that I've never seen before, and I could do an hour on it. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you might have missed from this Doomsday trailer. Let's go. What am I wearing? You just asked inappropriately. Well, this is our Open Your Eyes Doomsday inspired design available exclusively at our merch store, nerdriot.shop. Hey, if you have a New Rockstar shirt like this, take a selfie of yourself wearing it, post it, tag us, and we will shout you out in a video. Like Julie Sherwood, who got her friend Clinton Greenspan one of our Daredevil shirts for his birthday.
It's Daredevil stuff. No, I've always wanted this shirt specifically. I don't think I've even told you this.
No, but you asked me when I said I got a Daredevil shirt. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I've always wanted this. This is phenomenal. Thank you so much.
The trailer opens with this shot of the metal placard that we've seen outside the X-Mansion, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, 1407 Gray Malkin Lane, Salem Center, Westchester County, New York. The exact address of the X-Mansion from the Fox X-Men movies. We last saw these Fox-era X-Men in their continuity in 2014's X-Men Days of Future Past. In that film, Wolverine went back in time by consciousness hopping back into his younger body in the year 1973 to erase and rewrite a dystopian future, which he did, and found himself in a seemingly pleasant 2024 with all of the X-Men who died in the earlier X-Men films alive again, including Charles Xavier, Scott Summers, Cyclops, in 2024 with all of the X-Men who died in the earlier X-Men films alive again, including Charles Xavier, Scott Summers Cyclops, and Jean Grey. Only Wolverine remembered what the alternate history would have looked like, and arguably Professor X after the two debriefed. That X-Men universe's numerical designation is Earth 10005. Since that movie, we learned in Deadpool and Wolverine that Deadpool's universe is that same universe, and in that universe, Wolverine is the anchor being of it. An anchor being is an individual whose death triggers the beginning of the end of that universe. Deadpool and Wolverine ended with Deadpool finding a different Wolverine, the drunk Wolverine, to take the place of the one who died in the events of the Logan film, and according to B15, that universe was healthy once more. But now it's one of three universes colliding in this film in this incursion event. 10005, 616, and 828. We don't know yet if anchor beings will factor into the Doomsday plot, but we also don't know at this point if Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will appear in Doomsday. But along with all of these other returning X-Men, there is a still alive Wolverine somewhere amongst them. And here it is. We hear Robert Downey Jr.'s voice as Dr. Victor Von Doom.
Something's coming. Something we may not be able to deter before this day is done.
Slow down a little bit. I can't tell. Is it good? Then I can't tell.
Something's coming. Something we may not be able to deter before this day is done. We shall be faced with an unthinkable decision.
So this is Downey's
tell.
take on a Latvian accent. Latveria is not a real country, and its exact geography often changes depending on which Marvel title we see the map in, but it's generally understood to be Eastern Europe. When we've heard voice actors play Dr. Doom in the past, like Paul Dobson in Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes, and in other media, Maurice LaMarche in Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers Assemble, or Ross Marquand very briefly in X-Men 97, they tend to go with a generic, let's say, Romanian accent. Interestingly, Sebastian Stan is Romanian and can speak Romanian. I wonder if he consulted with Robert Downey Jr. on how to do this exactly. Dr. Doom is, of course, considered Marvel's greatest villain. At first an enemy to the Fantastic Four, actually a one-time college rival to Reed Richards, who went on to become ruler of Latveria, tinkering away in his Doomsday castle as he masters both science and magic. A South by Southwest London event earlier this year included various references to Doom's Latvian origin. Vladimir Fortunov was the name of the cruel Latvian dictator who ruled the country before Victor Von Doom overthrew him. The Rapprochement refers to an annual Latvian festival where traditionally Latvians seek to make peace with their enemies, celebrated in honor of the death of Doom's mother, Cynthia Von Doom. Cynthia Von Doom was his mother, and in certain retcons of his backstory, Dr. Doom lost his mother in a bad deal with Mephisto, and his pursuit of science and magic was all motivated by a mission to get her back from Mephisto. The Zephyro refers to the clan that Doom's parents, his mother Cynthia and his father Werner, were a part of, the clan that Victor would later lead in overthrowing Vladimir Fortunov, and Hassenstadt is the original name of the Doomstadt, the capital of Latveria. When Doom overthrew Fortunov, he renamed it Doomstadt after the family name of his mother and father. So the Russo brothers and Marvel head Kevin Feige have confirmed that Avengers Doomsday and its 2027 follow-up film Avengers Secret Wars are confirmed to be adapting the Jonathan Hickman comic storyline Time Runs Out that leads into the 2015 Secret Wars crossover event, in which Dr. Doom is the primary villain of it. Actually, Doom begins this story in a race against time to locate all molecule men in every universe. Owen Reese's molecule man sort of functions as the anchor being of that storyline, on a mission to save the multiverse from incursions that are destroying every universe. Doomverse presents himself under a secret identity known as Rabam Alal, masquerading as a multiverse messiah to fool the religious faction known as the Black Swans. But at some point, Dr. Doom uses Owen Reese to absorb the power of the Beyonders and become God Emperor Doom with absolute power over a new Earth that he builds out of the fractured pieces of the other realities shattered by
I'm just trying to figure out how Captain America is back, bro.
incursions, a new Earth known as
Different
Battle Worlds.
timeline,
We feel
maybe?
pretty confident that Marvel is working toward that power up by Doom because they put the exact comic where that happens in both the movie of Deadpool and Wolverine and its first trailer, Secret Wars #5. For the Dr. Doom in this movie, Joe Russo said at CinemaCon in April,
Victor Von Doom is the greatest Marvel villain of all time. Yes, he is greater than Thanos, but he's not simply a villain. He's one of the most complex Marvel characters. He's a scientist, a technologist, a genius, a magician, and he's always 3 moves ahead of even the most brilliant heroes, which is what makes him virtually unbeatable.
shout out to Brandon Davis for that footage, give him a follow. But by describing Dr. Doom as a scientist, technologist, genius, and magician, Russo clearly wants us to think of this iconic list of modifiers.
Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Yes, he is his world's Tony Stark, born into different circumstances with a different name. When Downey was first announced, he and the directors explained it this way.
New mask. Same task.
The same task we've all been assuming is what Tony Stark dreamed of in Avengers Age of Ultron.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
So when we hear Doom's line now in the trailer, it does sound like a warning to someone he loves, someone he's trying to get in the mindset of making a difficult sacrifice. In recent months, we've learned of British actress Matilda Firth being cast as a little girl in Avengers Doomsday. She has quite a resume, including Disney's Disenchanted. Some have been wondering if she could be a variant of Morgan Stark, in this case, Dr. Doom's daughter. On Father's Day, Robert Downey Jr. posted yet another one of his Dr. Doom holiday-themed Instagram posts that indicated that this Dr. Doom will in this movie, or maybe once did before this movie began, have a child. Actually, the official poster for this movie seems to confirm that, showing Dr. Doom looking at this huge tapestry in what I assume is a Doomsday, showing what I assume is his child and maybe his wife in this heavenly pose above an earth surrounded by angels. Maybe in this movie they're going to change it from Doom's mother to his wife being named Cynthia. And the focus on the globe here, I think, will speak to Doom's obsession with an entire armored earth and building a perfect utopian earth that he calls Battleworld using the pieces of these 3 other earths. Alternatively, this tapestry could show a young Victor with his mother Cynthia, whom he now prefers to see as living with the angels when she's actually in hell with Mephisto. Actually, in alternate timelines of the comics, Dr. Doom has a daughter with Sue Storm, a daughter named Valeria. An interest in a child of Sue Storm could explain Doom's interest in Franklin Richards in the post-credit scene of Fantastic Four First Steps, and why it was so important that it was Sue in that scene and not Sue and Reed, or just Reed. Joe Russo also saying 3 moves ahead of even most brilliant heroes is also a reference to Sue and Reed, or just Reed. Joe Russo also saying 3 moves ahead of even most brilliant heroes is also a reference to chess, a game played by Professor X and Magneto, specifically in the 3rd teaser that we saw in December. And Dr. Doom is often depicted as a chess master, and in chess you often have to make sacrifice plays. Now, in the lead up to South by Southwest London, the Russo brothers also revealed the official Latvian flag sigil for this movie, and we should note that it is different than the sigil on the Latvian flag that we saw at the Future Foundation in Fantastic Four First Steps. I think that was the former heraldry of the country, and the reason why it's new now is that Victor Von Doom has successfully staged a coup d'etat. It was supposed to be Vladimir Fortunov attending this Future Foundation conference, the former dictator, but the civil war back home is what led to his absence. We see Professor X at the X Mansion in his wheelchair, looking out one of the windows and shielding his eyes. In the window beyond, you can see the blue rim of another spherical atmosphere in the sky, and now a fiery rift tears into this atmosphere. This is an incursion, what it looks like from the ground level, what John Krasinski's Reed Richards described in Multiverse of Madness. When two
basically going inside, like, yeah, basically.
Or more Earths from alternate realities collide and destroying one or both
crazy
completely. The fact that their atmospheres are colliding tells us that these 3 Earths will have open rifts among each other, allowing characters to move among the 3 as the countdown continues to their cores merging. In many shots of the X-Mansion and Avengers Tower, you'll notice the sky is this kind of red-orange color. That is what it looks like with an alternate Earth appearing in red in the sky in the Hickman comics. In the 3rd teaser, we saw that this version of the X-Mansion has been heavily damaged, but it has also been modified from the last time we saw it, with more stained glass than the windows had in past times we've seen it. As we hear the "before this day is done" part of Doom's quote, we see our first shot of Dr. Doom with his metal mask, his metallic clasps, and this green hooded cloak. He's kneeling in this exterior location with various statues and these broken satellite dishes that I think is outside the X-Mansion. You'll notice behind him is that same hazy red sky with a tinted sun forming a lens flare past his head and a green circle at the far left-hand side of the lens flare. This circular cape clasp has been featured in a lot of banners and poster art for Dr. Doom, and I think it might be a source of his magical runic protection over his armor. There's certainly some kind of magical enchantment on Doom's armor, especially if it can block Thor's Stormbreaker at the end of the trailer. This green glow from the lens flare might be caused by the light refracting through whatever magical barrier he has around himself. Another interesting detail, on Doom's shoulder pauldron, you can see another red-tinted light source being reflected behind us. So rather than suns, we might be seeing 2 red Earths in different parts of the sky of wherever this is. So for anybody asking for a visual of what incursions will look like, imagine the red crescent in the sky beyond the staircase of the Sanctum Sanctorum in the post-incursion universe and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Imagine that, but also imagine 3 spheres or 3 bubbles that have all collided like a triple spherical Venn diagram with overlapping sections, like 3 bubbles that have found their way into each other, forming a Mickey. That would allow the atmospheres of all 3 Earths to be shared, and you could look up from the ground of one Earth up through a rift where those bubbles overlap and see the tops of buildings of another Earth looking down at you. Basically, as these 3 cores merge into each other, broken fragments will be sucked up to form a 4th Earth that will be called Battleworld. Here we see the new Avengers Tower. It's the tower 14 months after Thunderbolts, when Val was in the process of turning it into the Sentry Watchtower. That reconstruction was still underway throughout the Thunderbolts film, but now it has been completed. We actually saw this structure from a distance in Daredevil Born Again Season 2, in Episode 1 and in Episode 7. It's the same white A on the red field that we saw in the blast door of the penthouse level at the beginning of the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. Why does the tower have this lobster claw shape? What are these extra thinner sections even serving? Well, remember that there was this line in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene.
And now there's this huge space crisis and no one's telling us about it.
We're running out of space already? It's impossible. This building is enormous.
Outer space.
Outer space.
Run a threat analysis. I want a full report.
Yeah, before the Fantastic Four ship even showed up, there was another huge space crisis that no one was telling the new Avengers about. I think it was an early sign of one of these incursions, and I think these higher sections of Avengers Tower serve as antennae to connect with satellites that allow them to observe things in orbit. Behind Avengers Tower, that very tall building is a JP Morgan Chase World Headquarters, a rather new skyscraper completed in our world in 2025. A circular door opens and we see the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards in this cool white jacket, Johnny Storm and Sue Storm in blue jackets, and Ben, no jacket. Thor walks behind them carrying Stormbreaker. They seem to be coming from their spaceship that we saw in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, and though we don't see him in the shot, I think Steve Rogers is in the back there. And Herbie also, of course, would be with them. I'll explain why later in the video. But we know Thor starts with the Fantastic Four from this shot alone. In the second teaser, we see Thor with his adopted daughter, Love, Chris Hemsworth's real-life daughter, India Rose Hemsworth, who was originally the dead daughter of Gore the God Butcher, resurrected by the reincarnated form of eternity into Love. But Rose Fantastic Four from this shot alone. In the second teaser, we see Thor with his adopted daughter, Love, Chris Hemsworth's real-life daughter, India Rose Hemsworth, who was originally the dead daughter of Gore the God Butcher, resurrected by the reincarnated form of eternity into love. But he seems to lose her in this movie because he prays to Odin in a force by the reincarnated form of eternity into love. But he seems to lose her in this movie because he prays to Odin in a forced location for her safety. Now they walk into the Avengers Tower penthouse to see Captain America suited up with the shield strapped to his back, Bucky Barnes wearing his new suit from the Thunderbolts post-credit scene with the red star on the sleeve, and Scott Lang in his Ant-Man suit. A wide shot of this room where this orange-colored sunlight streaks in from the sky shows the full assembly. On the left, the Thunderbolts, aka the New Avengers, with John Walker in his new beret, Red Guardian Alexei Shostakov in his product-covered jumpsuit. Behind them both, barely visible in the frame on the far left, that's actually Bob Reynolds, Lewis Pullman, aka Sentry, wearing the same socks with sandals that he was wearing in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, reading Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, A Way of Being. To the right of Alexei is Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes with his new outfit, and Ava Starr, Ghost. On the right are the old Avengers, Scott Lang, Sam Wilson, and Thor. And again, I think Steve Rogers is also in this room, just hidden from view or framed out of this shot. But in the middle, on that raised platform by the screen wall, are the Fantastic Four, Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. On this screen wall, the same screen where the Thunderbolts saw the Fantastic Four ship arriving, is a visual display that I'm assuming comes from Reed or Herbie's computer explaining this incursion crisis. 3 blue Earths connected by lines in the center. This visual comes directly from Reed's multiverse explanation in Jonathan Hickman and Steve Epstein's New Avengers Volume 3, Number 2 from 2013, where Reed explains to the Illuminati incursions and almost a word-for-word explanation of what John Krasinski's Reed Richards echoed from the Illuminati Dais in Multiverse of Madness. On the left of the screen, you can see another diagram showing how these 3 Earths are also just half circles now with their cores exposed. Reed is demonstrating how all 3 of these Earths are going to be damaged, broken apart, but it seems to be their magnetic cores that are being drawn together. Each of the exposed cores are color-coded, blue, red, and yellow, which correspond to the blue, red, and yellow circles on the right side of screen. Interesting, not represented as a color green, which seems to be the color of Doom in this movie, maybe the color tone to his new battle world that forms. There's also a digital countdown beneath that image, like the countdown clock that Marvel has had on their YouTube channel, showing how much time they have left until this incursion process is complete. And I think another bit of dialogue from this scene was teased last night with the weekly every Sunday at 7 tweet of the Fantastic Four that finally, after 75 weeks, was updated.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. Sunday at 7, on the dot, no matter what.
How long do we have?
Not long.
That is creepy as hell. Really what we're seeing here is a meeting of the minds where all the heroes are recognizing this incursion crisis, but there's nothing on the screen about Dr. Doom. I assume that Sue Storm must see Dr. Doom as relevant to the crisis if he took their son. In this movie, 3 Marvel universes are colliding. Earth 616, that's the MCU we've known since Iron Man. Earth 10005 from the X-Men and Deadpool movies, and Earth 828, the Fantastic Four universe of First Steps. In Multiverse of Madness, we learn that an incursion is when multiple universes collide and destroy each other. In the 838 universe, incursions could be caused by using dark magic from the Darkhold to dreamwalk into the body of your variant. But why are these incursions happening? Well, this movie could say it's just a natural flow of the multiverse for this kind of thing to happen. Or this movie could try to link everything since Endgame and say that a number of breaches and violations to space-time and reality all put cracks in the dam. When Steve Rogers decided to stay in the past, when Doctor Strange and Spider-Man tinkered with the runes of Call spell in No Way Home, when Wanda Maximoff and Doctor Strange dreamwalked in Multiverse of Madness, when Dar-Ben used the quantum bands and universal weapon to open the rift that left Monica Rambeau stranded in the X-Men universe, when Dar-Ben used the quantum bands and universal weapon to open the rift that left Monica Rambeau stranded in the X-Men universe in the Marvels, when the X-Men and Days of Future Past got away with altering their timeline, and or when Loki did what he did to allow the multiverse to exist, not as a strictly pruned sacred timeline, but as a chaotically branching tree of eventualities. Maybe this movie is going to say that all of these things caused incursions and the deaths of universes, but there's some other force at play causing these 3 universes to collide at the same time. Like 2 Earths colliding, a natural accident, but 3 merging all at the same time without 2 bumping into each other first and then a 3rd one joining? That kind of feels like it was deliberate. Someone nudging these 3 Earths together. Reed Richards would certainly view that as more than a coincidence. Over all of this, lasting through the end of the trailer, Thor gives this awesome angry speech that sounds more pissed off than Chris Hemsworth has ever sounded as a character. I fought with many warriors in my time. They were far stronger than all of us put together, and they died. They died facing enemies and threats that scare me far less than this one. Everything they sacrifice will be for nothing if we do not stand together. Put aside your petty squabbles. Presume nothing except this. If you return, you will return as brothers and sisters. But mark my words, we're going to need a miracle. The tone Chris Hemsworth strikes here is darker and more bitter than we've ever heard from him as Thor. Scolding, I would say. In fact, it's similar to his dad when he did this in the first Thor movie.
Father.
By these warriors, Thor is referring to Iron Man Tony Stark, Natasha Romanoff, Loki, Heimdall, Vision, Gamora, and I guess Jane Foster as well, in addition to all the heroes who died in Infinity War and Endgame and stayed dead. Thor also lost the Asgardians that other Avengers didn't get to know too well. You'll notice Thor still bears the scar on the left side of his face from where Hela slashed out his eye in Ragnarok. So those scars of the last Doomsday event of his people still sting. Ragnarok and Doomsday are, after all, synonyms, meaning the same apocalyptic thing. We see Namor sitting on his throne that we saw in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Mesoamerican runes forming the back and a giant megalodon jawbone framed around it. Black Panther's Shuri and M'Baku, King of Wakanda, are there with all the Wakandan warriors facing off in Namor's throne room with all the blue-skinned Telekineal warriors. This Talokan throne room and the structure it's contained in are normally completely underwater in the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. Something has happened to bring it into this open air. In this throne room, as the camera pulls out, you can see Bucky, John Walker, Joaquin Torres, and Ghost on the left, and Sue and Ben on the right. And it's certainly more prominent in these desert shots throughout the trailer. There is a huge wall of water surrounding all of this. This part of the ocean floor has been completely drained, and the water's being pushed back by some mysterious force. What is this? Well, the theory that I've been chewing on lately is that what we're seeing here is actually in the void, the TVA multiversal dumping ground that we also saw in Deadpool and Wolverine. What we are seeing now is part of the 616 universe, the kingdom of Talokan that has already been extracted from the 616 universe and relocated to this newly forming Earth that will become Battleworld. And so I think part of the movie of Doomsday will be fought on that foundation that we will see completed by the end of the movie and explored more fully in Secret Wars. Both Namor and Shuri seem to have traded resources since the peace they reached at the end of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Notice how Namor has a new high collar with black embroidery that could be Wakandan vibranium weave, while Shuri has some turquoise pieces in her new Black Panther armor that look like Teleconil vibranium. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. When the weather is hot, everybody has a shorter fuse than normal. Be nice out from with no additional benefits found later in this trailer, and we've been assuming it looked like the landing in a off your first month of therapy because no one should have to go through anything alone. BetterHelp is here with you. Then we see Thor landing in a trail of lightning in the same exterior location that we saw Doom in earlier, surrounded by broken statues and what looked like the broken Sentinel parts. We saw Cyclops battling these Sentinels in the third teaser and later in this trailer, and we've been assuming that this is in the gardens outside the X-Mansion. Specifically, Charles Xavier seems to be going through his classical statues phase. There's one on the bookshelf earlier inside, and there's some broken ones outside here. And we see the blade of Stormbreaker igniting with lightning as Thor marches toward Dr. Doom in the distance. Then we cut to the inside of the X-Mansion as the wooden planks of the main staircase get blown apart in an exploding fireball. This explosion is coming from underneath. Is this from a hallway or room on the other side of the staircase? Or could it be coming from down below, like Cerebro or the Danger Room? Cyclops, James Marsden, steps forward in the next shot with the optic blast he emits through his ruby quartz lens eyepiece lighting up, making it seem like the blast was caused by him aiming at someone and not caring how much of his home mansion he's destroying, but I think it's from a different scene. Yes, as we saw in the December teaser, Cyclops is back to wearing the comic accurate blue and yellow suit with the Y-strap utility belt. Again, this Open Your Eyes shirt is available on our merch store, nerdwrite.shop. But then on the upper level of the mansion, Gambit, Remy LeBeau, Channing Tatum fights Shang-Chi, Simu Liu. Gambit looks just as he does from his first appearance in Deadpool and Wolverine, and Shang-Chi blocks his glowing purple staff and playing cards with his glowing orange 10 rings on his arms. Channing Tatum's Gambit was not a member of the X-Men in any of the Fox-era X-Men films that we saw. He had his own solo film that was in development hell, and in Deadpool and Wolverine, they made fun of that by implying that Gambit was a product of the void itself. In the post-credit scene of Deadpool and Wolverine, we saw a screen in the background of the TVA that showed Gambit still a product of the films that we saw. He had his own solo film that was in development hell, and in Deadpool and Wolverine, they made fun of that by implying that Gambit was a product of the void itself. In the post-credit scene of Deadpool and Wolverine, we saw a screen in the background of the TVA that showed Gambit still alive, and in a deleted scene that would have shown that shot in close-up, we see it was the glow of a sparkling sling ring portal that got Gambit out of the void. It would mean that someone, like Deadpool, using Cassandra Nova's sling ring, or someone else, rescued Gambit and let him live with the X-Men in the X-Mansion. This seems to be part of the movie where the Avengers and other heroes coming from Earth 616 travel to the X-Mansion in Earth 10005 in hopes of getting something from the X-Mansion, and the X-Men there at the time are just going to put up a fight. We'll see more of these matchups later, but one that we don't see here but we know will happen based on interviews is a fight between Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler and Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards that will also reportedly involve Kelsey Grammer's Beast because the actor had to be on set for that day. So why are these groups fighting? The X-Men might be stinging after an earlier defeat and terrified of any superpowered people from one of these neighboring dimensions breaking into what's left of their house. I suspect this group of 616 heroes is trying to get to Cerebro. Now, why do I think we're going to see Cerebro again? Well, in this interview after CinemaCon, Kevin Feige said that it was emotional for him to revisit these sets that he used to work on as an associate producer 26 years ago.
Well, look, I think for fans, the notion of having the Avengers and X-Men together for the first time within our cinematic universe is incredibly exciting. It's been something that has been a long time coming. Yeah. For me personally, my career started in 1998 on that first X-Men film. So, you know, no spoilers, but there might be some sets that you recognize, some sets that you recognize from those original films, and being on those sets 26 years later with my now 12-year-old son. Was pretty emotional.
But the issue is this X-Mansion set seems to be a new design that looks nothing like the X-Mansion interior from any of the X-Men films that Feige would have worked on. So I think there is another set like Cerebro that we're going to see in this movie. And I think that's where the Reed Richards Nightcrawler Beast fight will take place. Reed might need to get to Cerebro for some purpose, maybe to locate his mutant son Franklin Richards, or maybe there's some power to Cerebro that can stop what Doom is doing to smash these three worlds together. And a new shot that was not in the April CinemaCon trailer, Loki! He's back to wearing his analyst outfit that he wore throughout the Disney Plus series, specifically starting in season 1 episode 2, with the jacket and the neatly brushed back hair. And we see what seems to be his Time Variance Authority ID badge. He did not have this in the Loki series, but the back of this card shows a tree, and I think this is the Yggdrasil Worlds tree that the Sacred Timeline shifted to become the embodiment of in the final episode of the Loki series. We had assumed that Loki was trapped on that throne as the god of stories holding everything together. Now, it looks like our man can still move around. This could be actually a flashback to some of Loki's earlier days when he was with the TVA. But the thing is, we just didn't really see that many montages throughout that Loki series when this movie could say he made a side quest to somewhere else, with the exception of the season 2 thousands of years sequence. But specifically for those thousands of years, Loki was singularly focused on trying to avoid the temporal loom from exploding, and specifically he didn't have that jacket anymore. Also, the TVA didn't yet have that Yggdrasil tree as part of its iconography. However, there were other posters throughout the TVA that referenced just the basic task of pruning branches. You'll see that his badge number is 414-620-701-401-220. The Loki variant we followed in the Disney Plus series was L1130. This number didn't immediately jump out to me as any kind of numerological reference, but trust me, I'm gonna be digging into it. So where is Loki here? What is he doing? Well, the sky outside that curtain is the same color orange, so I'm guessing he's on one of the Earths threatened by an incursion. Notice the person holding this ID ID badge is wearing a wedding band. Loki doesn't have a wedding band. He ain't married. This perfectly manicured hand must belong to Steve Rogers, which means that Loki has appeared in Steve's house, the house that we saw in the first Doomsday teaser where Steve had the baby, meaning that God of Stories Loki must be grasping a strand of time representing Steve's universe, and within that universe has taken the form of the all-business TVA analyst to explain to Steve that what he did caused an incursion, warning him of the doom to come. And I think he's giving Steve
he made him, so he made him reverse it, I guess? That's crazy we didn't make
an ID badge to verify that he's not the evil villain that Steve remembers, but rather just a variant who has had a change of hearts in the time that he has worked with the TVA. I mean, that'd be a crazy sequence of events for Steve Rogers, right? Going from everything that he went through in Endgame, going back in time, going back to the Battle of New York, fighting his doppelganger self, having a Tesseract stolen from that Loki, and that same Loki who got away with the Tesseract during Endgame is the one who now shows up on his doorstep to say, hey, you really done messed up with the multiverse. Then we see the other group of 616 heroes meeting Shuri and M'Baku in the water-cleared ocean floor desert. We see Ben Grimm, Sue Storm, John Walker, Bucky, Joaquin Torres, Falcon, and Ava Star Ghost are there. But if half of the heroes we saw in Avengers Tower go to the expansion, I think this other half goes to Talokan, or the part of Talokan that's now in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, what else might be important about Talokan specifically? Well, in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, we saw some kind of glowing energy source coming out of that underwater structure of Talokan that was part of a deleted sequence that they didn't explore more fully in the movie. Since there was no natural sunlight that reached that ocean floor, I think they're drawing that power from the planet's core, the same planet core that Reed Richards has on the screen in the Avengers Tower penthouse. So I think Dr. Doom might be using that same energy source, and they just need to control it maybe to reverse the incursions. Back in the mansion, we see Reed Richards in his white jacket, his arm stretched out to restrain Sam's shield. Shang-Chi stands behind Reed, and the robot Herbie is to the right of Sam. I mean, Herbie even being there with them supports my theory that Reed needs some extra tech support to hack into Cerebro. On the window, you can see the Charles Xavier family crest with the blue X, from which Charles likely derived the X-Men logo, and you can also see the Latin motto of Fiat Lux, Fiat Vis, or let there be light, let there be strength, the first word spoken by God in the book of Genesis to breathe existence into the universe, and a prayer that mankind, and perhaps mutant kind, will have the strength to survive. But dipping beneath Reed's outstretched arm, limbo style, is Yelena Belova, gun drawn, and we see her opponent, Mystique. Rebecca Romaine is back playing shapeshifter Raven Darkholme. Jennifer Lawrence took over the character as they explore the younger era of the X-Men in the later films. But the way Days of Future Past left the timeline altered, style is Yelena Belova, gun drawn, and we see her opponent, Mystique. Rebecca Romaine is back playing shapeshifter Raven Darkholme. Jennifer Lawrence took over the character as they explore the younger era of the X-Men in the later films. But the way Days of Future Past left the timeline altered, older Mystique never got depowered in the events of X-Men The Last Stand, and she was still part of Magneto's mutant brotherhood that now seems to be in alliance with the X-Men. Actually, technically, she would still be posing as Senator Kelly. She has an updated appearance, shorter red hair and a white top instead of defaulting to nude, and a lighter blue skin with dark spots. But the way she shapeshifts remains the layered scales effect that always looks so good, far better than any of the granular scroll shapeshifting that the MCU attempted years later. Mystique catches Yelena's baton and shapeshifts into her. So now we have two Yelenas with their hands around each other's throats, a similar visual to what Yelena had to go through in her Void of Shame and Thunderbolts. Charles Xavier emotionally embraces Ian McKellen's Magneto. There have been various reports that we will see Magneto destroy New Jersey in this movie from Ian McKellen himself in a few interviews, but Joe Russo and Kevin Feige told Entertainment Weekly that McKellen might have misspoke, saying, I don't think he destroys New Jersey, but there's a New Jersey presence. But if that does happen, it would be a reference to the 2009 Ultimatum story when Magneto reverses Earth's polarity. A lightning storm appears above New York City and a tsunami wipes out Manhattan. Scott Lang kisses the forehead of his daughter Cassie Lang. Catherine Newton confirmed that she will also be joining the cast of the film. And the fact that both of these characters are in this movie suggests to me that they're going to have to, at least in part, reference the conflict with Kang the Conqueror from Quantumania. I don't think they're going to say the name Kang, but I think they're going to refer to those other events generally. Then we see Johnny Storm hugging his sister Sue. There's a fiery light engulfing them, so maybe we're seeing the end of the movie, the beginnings of the horrific things that Dr. Doom does to Johnny Storm as Battleworld forms. He turns Johnny Storm into the literal son of this world. Then two shots of the ocean-cleared desert region suggest that Sue Storm is nodding to Shuri as she does the Wakandan salute and boards the Royal Wakandan ship. Then Sam Wilson lands on the floor of the X-Mansion during this fight with the X-Men. Gambit flips from the high balcony and strikes his glowing staff on the ground, causing a purple shockweave at the feet of Shang-Chi. On the floor around him are Sam Wilson, Mystique, who's still fighting Yelena, and Reed Richards. Then the shot that ended teaser number 3, Cyclops angrily releases a wide aperture optic blast as Sentinels stomp around him. One severed Sentinel head is to the right here. Why does Cyclops seem so hopeless? Well, there's some thought that Doom might have taken his son or daughter, Nathan Summers, aka Cable, or Rachel Summers. Sue looks drained here as she emits her force field as the wall of seawater churns around her. And then we see Namor flying fast around that wall of the cleared out area. I think they might be trying to extract this Talokan region from the newly forming Battleworld, and I think they're gonna fail. Then the money shot of the trailer.
Crazy, bro.
Thor recreates his epic leap and the attack with the same weapon that he used against Thanos in Infinity War, and even this time smartly aims for the head. Stormbreaker was designed to be a god killer and did surpass the combined power of all 6 Infinity Stones. So for Dr. Doom to simply stop all of that power with just 2 armored fingers, it gives us a sense of the power scale compared to Thanos. Actually, speaking of Thanos, God Emperor Doom memorably does this to Thanos in Secret Wars number 8. In a 2025 Shanghai Disney Expo laser show depicted Dr. Doom doing the same thing to Thanos. So we might see it in this movie. If you're interested like I am in Disney Expo, speaking of Thanos, God Emperor Doom memorably does this to Thanos in Secret Wars number 8. In a 2025 Shanghai Disney Expo laser show, God Emperor Doom memorably does this to Thanos in Secret Wars number 8.
Nigga ripped that nigga bone out. A skeleton, that's it. skeleton out.
In a 2025 Shanghai Disney Expo laser show depicted Doctor Doom doing the same thing to Thanos. So we might see it in this movie. If you're interested like I am in revisiting Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, New Rockstars is like 35 episodes deep in our Road to Doomsday weekly Marvel rewatch podcast series. Specifically this Saturday morning, we're going to be revisiting Avengers Infinity War. So be sure to watch that episode and all the past episodes, because trust me, we've been having some interesting conversations there. So Doom even blocking Thor's lightning like this might be recreating Billy Tan's artwork for Thor number 605 from 2009. In this storyline, Thor avenges his Asgardian people after Doom experimented on them in Latveria. And notice the rune on Doom's gauntlet. Doom rune! This is the same symbol that was on Doom's throne at the recent Billy Worlds event in Shanghai this year, and the rune that was projected with green lasers at that Shanghai Disney Expo last year. And I think this is the deeper magic that Doom knows that overpowers all types of science and magic from our heroes. And notice how each corner of that rune has two antlers or pincers. Doesn't that look like Loki's crown? I think this is a clue that Doom either has or can absorb God of Stories Loki's powers over reality warping. This is the clearest shot of the Doctor Doom mask and Robert Downey Jr. underneath it. You can see his clear green eyes glaring angrily at Thor. And then the trailer ends with this moment.
We're going to need a miracle.
Hey, pal.
It's not possible.
Chris Evans' Steve Rogers is back. Casual Friday. Yes, recreating the most iconic moment from Avengers Endgame. This is a cracked / broken Mjolnir that was reassembled after Hela's destruction in Ragnarok by Jane Foster in Thor Love and Thunder. If you look closely, you can see Johnny Storm standing behind Steve. Looks like this is on the Fantastic Four ship. How did Steve get back with Thor here? Well, when Steve chose to stay behind with Peggy Carter in the late 40s at the end of Avengers Endgame, that decision, according to the Russo brothers when Endgame came out, caused a branch timeline to form. Steve lived his new life with Peggy Carter in a branch history that we never saw. I've read and listened to literally every interview given by the Russo brothers over the past 10 years, and I can confirm that they use the terms timeline and universe and reality interchangeably. In their logic, Steve staying with Peggy caused a new universe to form. And the theory I discussed in this video is that Steve's decision caused the creation of what we would later call the 828 universe, the universe of the Fantastic Four. I like the idea that Steve being around to help S.H.I.E.L.D. defeat Hydra in the late 40s and 50s and warn world powers against developing hydrogen bombs would have led to the peaceful 60s.
What was the point of adding him, like, I don't know if y'all remember the end of, was it Endgame? Bro, it was like an older version of him. What happened? He just, okay.
That the Fantastic Four inherited and enabled world peace via the Future Foundation. This could be a universe where Robert Downey Jr., instead of playing the hero Tony Stark in the 21st century, ended up just being born as a Latvian named Dr. Doom. Now, before you say, wait, wouldn't there only be history from 1949 onwards? No, I think in a new universe, it kind of back retcons a completed history that led up to that. The arguments against this theory are that if the 828 universe forward by branching off of the 616 from the year 1949, both universes should have the same history of World War II and before, right? And if Dr. Doom comes from the 828 universe, he couldn't also be a Tony Stark variant, because in the 616 MCU, Tony Stark was born to Howard Stark in the year 1970. To that, I would say, we don't yet know how this Dr. Doom really came about. We also don't know what logic the Russos are going to say branch timelines and universes follow when it comes to filling out the past history of a parallel universe. The nature of Steve's choice to stay behind could have just resulted in some magical cosmic side effect, where the anchor being Soul that found its body in Tony Stark in the 616 universe just found its body in someone named Victor Von Doom in this newly formed 828 history. But if Steve had been living in the 828 universe since Endgame, it's not too hard to trace the timeline through the early 60s, where that could have been him with his slightly older son watching that Fantastic Four cartoon show in that montage sequence in the Fantastic Four First Steps film to the year 1969 to 1970 in this branch timeline when the Fantastic Four's mid-credit scene takes place, the point where he looks somewhat older and joined Thor and the Fantastic Four on their way back to the 616 Earth. At CinemaCon, the press release stated that actor Wesley Holloway was also in the cast, and I think he might be playing Steve's son after this time has passed. Someone I think could be named James or Jimmy after James Buchanan Barnes. Either way, we know that Steve will have to end his journey sometime after the events as a very old man handing the shield back to Sam Wilson. That'll be a crazy time loop because Sam in this movie will have a memory of older Steve that Steve in this movie hasn't experienced yet. Either way, when Thor says it's impossible as he looks at Steve, I don't think he's talking about Steve being alive again, because Thor at this point would have experienced crazy enough time travel and multiversal hopping. But I do think he's reacting to Steve telling him that their fallen friend of Tony Stark is a variant by another name. Also, it's possible that Thor is reacting to the face of Tony Stark right here on the ship with them, when Victor might be coming to them as a friend offering to help with these incursions. Like maybe removed from all these earlier shots of the Marvel heroes and Avengers meeting with each other, there is like a variant of Tony Stark who's pretending like he's their friend when he's gonna stab them in the back very soon. Or maybe when Thor fights the masked Dr. Doom, at first he doesn't connect who it is until he looks into his eyes. Despite seeing the other shot of Loki in this trailer, I think that we're gonna see Thor and Steve and maybe even Robert Downey Jr.'s seemingly heroic friend head to the TVA with Sentry, and that's when Dr. Doom is gonna switch sides and use Sentry as his conduit to channel Loki, God of Stories' power to absorb it and give himself the power to manipulate reality. So Chris Evans and Catherine Newton are just two MCU hero names that were not initially confirmed by Marvel in 2025 to be in the cast. So if they're coming back, you know other surprise heroes will as well. On Easter, Robert Downey Jr. posted this Easter egg art that included the sigils of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. But the fact that Marvel already released a CinemaCon trailer now here on Monday shows that they're gonna have even bigger reveals this Saturday at CinemaCon. That could be other cast members that they haven't confirmed yet. New Rockstars is going to be covering everything at CinemaCon, specifically with a live stream covering Marvel Studios Hall H panel on Saturday afternoon. We're gonna start live streaming at 4 p.m. Pacific time, but we're also gonna have live streams on Thursday and Friday as well. So subscribe to New Rockstars, join us for those live streams. Jessica and I will be there in San Diego reporting live on the scene while the rest of the team anchors the desk back here at New Rockstars HQ. I'm going to be talking about this trailer a lot in the days ahead. Comment down below with your thoughts on it, and a special thanks to one of our In Our Underground subscribers, Frederick Price, for supporting us at the executive producer level. You can get all of our
well, W freaking video, man. W breakdown. W trailer. You know what I'm saying? And I'm out of here, man.